Mom holds a deep admiration for the tender care you bestow upon the peach tree. Once upon a time, a mother yearned deeply to embrace that soft, tender sensation, longing to feel it just once in her heart. In a world where dreams dance like fireflies in the night, a mother yearns to embrace the joy that life can offer. Yet, the father of dreams, shrouded in mystery, does not share her vision of bliss. In this chapter of her life, Mother has yet to encounter the kind of happiness that dances in my dreams. Greetings, esteemed ladies and gentlemen. Gather round, dear friends, and let me extend a warm invitation to our channel, where stories await to be shared. Gather round, for today we embark on a tale woven with rich emotions and unexpected turns, destined to leave our listeners in a state of wonder and inner turmoil. In the grand tapestry of life, there are moments when individuals find themselves ensnared in challenging circumstances, where the distinction between right and wrong fades into a hazy twilight. In the heart of a bond that once felt inviolable, shadows began to creep in, challenging its very foundation through fleeting moments of frailty. Can the weight of regret truly balance the scales of past missteps? In today's tale, the answer awaits you within the unfolding story of the video. Gather round, dear friends, and let us lend our ears and hearts to the tales that await us. Together, we shall ponder and reflect on the stories shared. Remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and following, so you can stay tuned for the next captivating tales that await you on the channel. And so, the journey begins. As I assisted my wife in dressing our little one for the day ahead, a familiar voice echoed from outside. My father-in-law was calling out to us. Should you find a moment, the two of you are warmly invited to visit and see how your mother is faring. In the midst of a bustling day, Dad finds himself wrapped up in a meeting at the commune, unable to make his way over. Just a moment ago, she reached out with a call, sharing the news. In a moment thick with unspoken words, my wife chose to weave a veil of silence around herself, as if the world outside had faded into a distant whisper. With a gentle focus, she carried on dressing the child, her silence speaking volumes in the quiet room. Upon witnessing the scene, I rushed to the door, my heart racing, and called out to my father, "What troubles my mother, Dad?" I felt a pressing need to fetch medicine and return swiftly to her side. Once upon a time, my father-in-law busied himself with preparations for school. In the midst of his tasks, he turned to me and said, "Tell Mai to call her mother and inquire." Earlier, he had caught wind of something but chose not to delve into the details. With those words lingering in the air, he mounted his trusty bike and set off on his journey to work. Once upon a time, I gently suggested to my beloved wife that she reach out to my mother to inquire about the medicine she required. After we had taken our little one to school, I promised to venture out, procure the needed remedy, and deliver it to her with care. With a sharpness in her voice, my wife declared, "If you wish to go, then go and procure it yourself. I simply don't have the time to tend to her." It was clear that her feelings for her mother were distant, leaving the burden of care squarely on my shoulders. Yet in the solitude of her home, she finds herself adrift, and when illness creeps in, a haunting silence fills the air, leaving her uncertain of whom to reach out to in her time of need. Once upon a time, in a world filled with love and companionship, there lived a man named Tung. For 7 beautiful years, he shared his life with a wonderful woman named Emo, weaving together a tapestry of memories and dreams. Ever since the day we exchanged vows, my journey has led me to reside in the warm embrace of my wife's home. In a land not so close to my heart, my hometown lies distant, while the bustling city calls to me for work. Thus, I took a step into a new chapter, moving in with my beloved wife, a choice made for the ease of our careers and the harmony of our lives together. From the moment I stepped into the world of university, my parents began to weave a tale of separation, a dream of divorce that lingered in the air like an unspoken promise. Once upon a time, Emo shared a tale that echoed through the corridors of her memory. It was a time when her mother, in a moment of longing, chose to leave the family behind to embark on a new journey with a man who was younger than 30. After years of patiently waiting within the walls of their home, the time came for Mo's father to take a decisive step and file for divorce. He remained at home, devoted to nurturing Mo's education, while she vanished into thin air, leaving no sign behind. In the tender moments of our wedding, my beloved Mo took a brave step, casting a heartfelt ad in search of her mother. She longed for the joy of having both her father and mother by her side on that momentous day. Yet, despite the hope that filled her heart, her mother chose not to return. Once upon a time, 2 years passed, she returned, seeking forgiveness. Yet, in that moment, she averted her gaze, refusing to meet her eyes, and barred her from reaching out to the child they both cherished. As I gazed upon the delicate figure of the woman before me, a wave of compassion washed over my heart, stirring a deep sense of sorrow for her plight. On countless occasions, I found myself sharing with my wife the weight of my desire to forgive my mother. Yet, each time, she would gently dismiss my thoughts, insisting that it was a matter beyond my concern. In a moment of vulnerability, she found herself unwell, a condition so grave that it compelled her to reach out to my father-in-law. He, much like my wife, shows little concern for her well-being. Alas, I find myself unable to act, for each time my gaze falls upon her, solitary and still, a wave of sorrow washes over me. Though my wife may strive to cut the ties of that cherished bond, in my heart, she will forever remain my mother-in-law. On countless days, I find myself gently lifting the child in my arms, embarking on a secret journey to reunite him with his beloved grandmother, if only for a fleeting moment. In the innocence of youth, the boy remains blissfully unaware, and thus, I find solace in the thought that my wife will remain oblivious to it all. Many a time, my father-in-law stumbled upon the truth, yet he chose to remain silent, casting his gaze away from the unfolding tale. As I prepared for the day ahead, I slipped into my work attire, a familiar routine that signaled the start of a new adventure. In a moment of thoughtfulness, I picked up some fever and flu medicine, a small gesture of care for her well-being. In a moment of quiet mischief, I found myself tucked away in the bathroom, away from my wife's watchful eyes. With a phone in hand, I dialed her number, my heart racing as I inquired about her well-being and whether she had taken a bite to eat that day. As I listened to her voice, a weariness lingered in the air, and there stood my wife, preparing to embark on the morning journey of taking our child to school. Once upon a morning, I called out, "Hey, take the kids to school, and I'll be there to pick them up in the afternoon." The sun had barely risen as I hurried off to the company, my mind racing with the day's tasks ahead. Meanwhile, my wife, perhaps still carrying the weight of a recent disagreement, remained silent, her thoughts drifting in the quiet of the morning. With a firm grip on our son's hand, she strode purposefully toward the door, casting a frosty glance back at me as she uttered, "Go out and remember to lock the door. Should you find yourself at her house, simply deliver the medicine and return swiftly, for there is no need to linger too long in her presence." In a twist of fate, my wife seemed to possess an uncanny knowledge of all my secret plans. I found myself at a crossroads, utterly speechless, grappling with how to respond in that moment of revelation. But what a curious turn of events. If she did not hinder my departure, it surely signifies that her heart has begun to soften. With a hopeful heart, I believed that this would bring a sense of ease. So I hopped on my bike and pedaled away, determined to fetch some medicine and an extra bowl of porridge for her. In a quaint neighborhood, just 2 alleys away from my humble abode, my mother-in-law found a small room to call her own. With urgency in my heart, I dashed to the mouth of the alley and summoned her, pleading for her to come to the gate and retrieve it for me. The thought of venturing into the room weighed heavily on my mind, for parking the bike would surely pose a great challenge. Yet, Despite my calls, she remained silent on the other end of the line. With no other option before me, I mounted my trusty bike and pedaled my way to a quaint cafe nearby, where I carefully secured it before stepping inside. As I approached the door, I raised my hand and knocked, the sound echoing softly in the stillness. Time seemed to stretch, and I stood there, anticipation building, for what felt like an eternity before she finally appeared, swinging the door open to greet me. As I glanced around the room, my gaze was drawn to my mother-in-law, gracefully adorned in a light, airy two-piece nightgown that seemed to dance with the gentle breeze. With a heart full of hesitation, I averted my gaze, carefully portioning the medicine and porridge laid out before her. "Mom," I murmured, "please eat the porridge and take your medicine. There's a guide for each one. I must be off to work now." But why the rush, I wondered. "Step inside and take a seat, for a refreshing glass of water awaits you. Would you be so kind as to bring the apricot tree over here as well?" As she spoke, she deftly adjusted her blouse, which threatened to slide off her shoulder at any moment. With a heart full of unspoken words, I found myself turning my eyes away from her piercing gaze. She was preoccupied, tending to the needs of the maid as she prepared for the journey to school. And in her kindness, she had also procured the medicine meant for you, a testament to her caring nature. In a moment of hesitation, I found myself standing at a crossroads, unable to share the thoughtless words that had slipped from my wife's lips. Instead, I made the choice to weave a different tale, one that would shield her from the truth. Yet, it appears she has unraveled the mystery, for a mother possesses an innate understanding of how the plum tree tends to her heart, rendering any defense unnecessary. But fret not, step inside, for Mother has a tale to share with you. With a heavy heart, I stepped into the modest rented room, a space that held little of worth beyond the worn television and the unassuming bed. In a moment filled with unexpected turns, I found myself without a seat for the guests, leading me to take a place on the bed beside my mother-in-law. As she savored her porridge, her voice wove a tapestry of childhood dreams, each word tinged with a bittersweet melancholy that lingered in the air. In a moment of reflection, she spoke of the time apart, a time filled with longing and affection for Emo. Her heart ached with love, yet her father's words held her back, forbidding her from bringing Emo along on her journey. She spoke of her departure, revealing that it was not the allure of another that drove her away, but the shadows of his violence that compelled her to seek freedom. In a twist of fate, my father-in-law emerged as a figure so unlike the tales spun by Emo, each story painting a different picture than the man before me. In the midst of our exchange, a flicker of doubt danced in my mind, yet I chose silence over confrontation, merely nodding to navigate the currents of our conversation. In a moment that felt both fleeting and eternal, she found herself overwhelmed, tears cascading down her cheeks as her heartache poured forth in a voice thick with emotion. In the quiet corners of her heart, Mother finds herself adrift, surrounded by echoes of laughter that once filled her home. The absence of a husband, the silence where children once played, and the void where grandchildren's joy should be, leave her with a profound sense of loss. In the twilight of her years, she finds herself surrounded by silence, a solitude that whispers of the absence of kin. Surely, the echoes of laughter and warmth have faded, leaving her to navigate the shadows of her old age alone. In that moment, I found myself unable to restrain my emotions as I beheld her in such a way. With open arms, I embraced her, offering solace as I whispered reassurances that she would always have both me and Siyu Bin by her side. In the days to come, as it matures and blossoms, it will hold a deep affection for you, dear mother. Fear not, for you shall not walk this path in solitude. In a moment filled with hope, I believed that my gentle embrace would soothe her troubled heart and lessen her tears. Yet, to my surprise, it seemed to have the opposite effect, drawing forth even more sorrow from her soul. With a fierce embrace, she pressed her head against my chest, tears streaming down her face as she whispered how fortunate she felt to have me as her child. "Oh, dear mother, how you have borne the weight of the world upon your shoulders, pouring your heart and soul into your family, yet receiving so little in return." My mother-in-law clung to me, her grip firm and unyielding, as her voice trembled with the weight of unshed tears. In that moment, I found myself bound by circumstance, compelled to remain in place, patiently awaiting her tranquility before I could embark on my journey to work. As her tears flowed like a river, a peculiar transformation took hold of her, drawing her ever closer to me in her time of need. Her spaghetti-strap dress bore the marks of a tumultuous evening, unable to conceal the secrets it held beneath its fabric. In a moment of uncertainty, I found myself frozen in place, my gaze fixed upon the window, which stood slightly ajar, inviting the world outside to whisper its secrets. Noticing her reluctance to rise, I softly urged, "Mom, please sit up, take your medicine, and then rest so you can heal." I knew I had to return to work soon, but I wanted to linger by her side just a bit longer, cherishing these moments together. To be unwell in solitude, facing the shadows of illness, is a challenging journey indeed. In the quiet moments, when the world feels vast and empty, Mom finds herself wrapped in a blanket of solitude. Yet, amidst the silence, there exists a glimmer of hope, for I am here by her side. Her words lingered in the air, a gentle plea that wrapped around my heart. How could I possibly turn away from such a request? In truth, the thought of leaving her to face her illness alone weighs heavily on my heart, yet the circumstances create a certain tension in the air. Unbeknownst to her, the fabric of her shirt was on the brink of surrender, slipping away as she leaned in closer, her presence enveloping me like a warm embrace. In that moment, I found myself hesitating, unable to summon the words to gently remind her to adjust her shirt. As the warmth crept across my cheeks and ears, a vivid crimson hue enveloped me, and it was clear that such a transformation did not go unnoticed by her keen eyes. She propped herself up, casting a glance my way before her eyes drifted down to her shirt, as if it were the most ordinary sight, devoid of anything out of the ordinary. With a serene demeanor, she spoke, "I didn't notice earlier and made you uncomfortable." I quietly murmured to myself, "I'm heading to work now. The hour is already quite late." In a flurry of movement, I sprang to my feet, only to be gently tugged back down by her. A bewildering sensation washed over me, as if my very essence had shifted, surrendering completely to the weight of her gaze. In that moment, I found myself adrift, my composure slipping away like sand through my fingers. My hands and feet danced in a clumsy ballet, a reflection of the turmoil within, leaving me at a loss for words, unable to weave the tale I so desperately wished to share. As I stood there, a warm flush creeping across my cheeks, my limbs felt like they were caught in a dance of uncertainty. Her laughter rang out, light and teasing, as she leaned closer and asked, "What is it that makes you shy, dear?" Once upon a time, there was a man who had taken a vow of love, a promise to cherish his beloved wife. He had journeyed far from the days of youthful folly, where dreams danced lightly on the breeze. Now he stood firmly in the embrace of commitment, a wise soul no longer swayed by the whims of youth. With a nervous stammer, I began, but. To my surprise, my mother-in-law erupted into laughter, her earlier weariness and illness seemingly forgotten in an instant. With a gentle grip on my hand, she leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand I made a mistake, and I realize that what I'm about to share may stir your anger. Yet," she implored, "allow me to pour out my heart, my dear." Her eyes met mine, filled with a depth of emotion that was impossible to turn away from. "Indeed, dear mother, please proceed. In the quiet moments, you find yourself captivated by the tender way I tend to emo, and a longing stirs within you, a desire to feel that gentle, nurturing embrace, if only for a fleeting moment. In a world where dreams of happiness danced in the heart of a mother, there stood a father whose spirit did not mirror her desires. In her many years, my mother has yet to catch a glimpse of true happiness, a fleeting moment that has eluded her time and again. In a moment of bewilderment, I found myself grasping the meaning behind every word and phrase she uttered, yet I chose to don the mask of innocence, feigning ignorance in the dance of our conversation. Oh, dear mother, I find myself just an ordinary soul, often feeling the weight of my wife's criticisms upon my shoulders. I can't help but think that perhaps I am not as remarkable as I wish to be. In a world where judgment often reigns, I find myself pondering the weight of her expectations. If I stand here, true to myself, yet still face the sting of criticism, I can't help but wonder what kind of man she envisions in her mind's eye. As the evening unfolded, my mother-in-law, with an air of determination, continued her chatter, inching closer and closer. No matter how much I shifted away, her presence seemed to envelop me, a relentless tide that refused to recede. At last, as I gathered my thoughts and steadied my heart, I faced her with a question that had lingered in the air. "What do you want from me?" I inquired, the weight of the moment pressing down. My mother had spoken her truth. She longed to experience the warmth of being cherished, just once. Could you be the one to grant her that wish? Yet, my dear son, the privilege of indulgence is a treasure meant solely for your beloved wife. As for you, dear mother, I found myself stumbling over my words, the carefully crafted phrases that danced in my mind refusing to escape my lips. In the depths of my heart, I yearn to convey to her that the desires she holds so dearly are beyond my reach, and alas, I find myself unable to offer even a single moment of assistance. Yet there I stood, ensnared by my own thoughts, words trapped within me, for her gaze pierced through the silence, filled with a depth of pain and sorrow that rendered me speechless. In that moment, I found myself captivated by a gaze that stirred memories deep within me, reminiscent of my mother's eyes. Each time I looked into her gaze, I couldn't help but see the faint echo of my wife's presence reflected back at me. In that moment, I found myself unable to utter words that could wound her spirit. As her eyes met mine, a wave of uncertainty washed over me, and I fumbled for a way to escape the tension that hung in the air. Just then, in a burst of spontaneity, she dashed toward me and enveloped me in a warm embrace. In a moment that felt like destiny, I wandered through the shadows of uncertainty, a lost soul adrift in the vastness of life. Then, with a heart full of courage, she extended her hand, a bold gesture that spoke volumes of her feelings for me. My wife often speaks of my strength, yet in those moments of challenge, how could I summon the clarity to choose the right path? In a moment that was both thrilling and unsettling, I found myself captivated by my mother-in-law's audacity. Though a sense of concern flickered within me, I remained silent, unable to summon the will to halt her advances. Instead, I surrendered to the rhythm of her touch, feeling it dance across my skin in a way that both exhilarated and bewildered me. As I reclined, savoring the peculiar breaths that hung in the air, a soft whisper brushed against my ear, the voice of my mother-in-law weaving a playful promise, "I'm going to drive you crazy now." For what felt like an eternity, Mom had been anticipating this very day. Little did I know, she had been keeping a watchful eye on me all along. Those moments when she summoned me to her home were merely a clever ruse, a pretext for something much deeper. In days gone by, she had caught sight of me, and I would find myself either lingering for my child or making a fleeting visit, only to depart in haste. Today, she found herself under the weather, and in response, I behaved in a way that reflected her condition. With newfound courage, I asked, "Mom, what have you been waiting for all this time?" It was a moment of revelation as she caught sight of you, tending to the plants in the yard during a secret visit to the crab pen. From that day forward, her heart began to stir with a different feeling. Once upon a time, there was a mother who longed to savor a particular feeling, a fleeting moment of joy that had eluded her for far too long. Today, dear friend, you have the chance to grant her that wish, to let her indulge in that cherished experience, if only for a little while. But just today, dear mother, I find myself in a predicament. I wish to keep this matter from my beloved wife. Should she uncover the truth, dear one, your days of tranquility in her presence would surely come to an end. Today, my dear, I shall embrace the joy that has been a distant dream for so long. Whispers of enchantment danced through the air, mingling with breaths of astonishment. In that moment, silence enveloped us and words became unnecessary. We simply let our actions speak for themselves. She weaves a spell around me, igniting a fire of longing that leaves me both enchanted and adrift. With a wealth of experience and a spark of enthusiasm, she possesses an uncanny ability to discern precisely where my needs lie. In that moment, I sensed a wildness within me, as if I were a creature of the night, playfully danced with by unseen hands. Yet, curiously, instead of fear, a peculiar joy blossomed in my heart. This sensation stands in stark contrast to the turmoil that often accompanies my time spent with my wife. In a curious twist of fate, my mother-in-law yearns for my tender care, yet here I stand, wondering how she might bestow upon me the same warmth and affection in this very moment. First, I must bring joy to my dear mother, and then I shall return to the duties that a man must fulfill. In the depths of my being, I embody strength and passion, pouring every ounce of my spirit into returning the kindness that has been bestowed upon me. In her eyes, a radiant joy dances, whispering tales of happiness that words could never capture. In this moment, that gaze mirrors my wife's, yet it lacks the fervor and drive that her mother embodies in all things. We intertwined seamlessly as I infused every ounce of my experience and youthful spirit into the performance. At long last, the radiant smile of my mother-in-law graced my eyes, filling the air with warmth and joy. She gifted me a sensation unlike any I had known since the day I wed my beloved wife. In the midst of the hustle and bustle of life, I found myself swept away, completely forgetting the call of duty that was work. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, with her own struggles, appeared to have cast aside the weight of her illness, lost in the rhythm of the day. Beyond the threshold, the lively chatter of market women filled the air with the art of negotiation, while the sun, having reached its peak, began to cast gentle beams of light that danced through the narrow crevices of the window. In the quiet of our shared world, it was just the two of us, bound together in a dance of joy. We held each other close, savoring the sweet moments that seemed to stretch on endlessly, until weariness finally wrapped its gentle arms around us, urging us to pause and rest. She had sapped my very essence, leaving my legs quaking beneath me, unable to bear my weight. Yet, amidst the laughter that danced in the air, she playfully mocked me, declaring that I must embrace the art of exercise to find the path to health, for anything less simply would not do. In moments of reflection, a shadow of sadness creeps in when the words of criticism about my health reach my ears. It stirs a deep-seated truth within me, for I carry the weight of my mother's legacy, a legacy that has drawn upon my very essence, leaving me feeling somewhat drained. But my dear wife finds herself in a position where she must plead for my forgiveness. It is a curious dance we engage in, for she approaches it with a sense of resignation, as if merely seeking to put an end to the matter. Alas, there is little intrigue in this ritual we share. In the quiet corners of our lives, my mother-in-law speaks a truth that lingers in the air. My wife and I, we find ourselves drifting through the motions, our passion dimmed, our intensity faded. We share the same bed, not out of desire, but rather as a duty woven into the fabric of family life. My wife, a virtuous soul, often reacts with sharp words whenever I propose an adventure into the unknown. She accuses me of tainting her with the vices of a wayward spirit, casting a shadow over my intentions. Slowly, I found myself drifting along, my heart devoid of any spark or enthusiasm. Yet here we are, in this moment, where she possesses all that I desire. How could I ever dream of letting go? Once all was said and done, weariness enveloped me like a heavy cloak, and I surrendered to slumber, drifting away until the clock struck 4 p.m. As the sun began to rise, my mother-in-law stirred from her slumber. She stepped into the refreshing embrace of the shower, the water cascading down like a gentle waterfall. Afterward, the enticing aroma of her cooking filled the air, yet, amidst all her morning rituals, she did not summon me to join her. As I glanced at my phone, my heart skipped a beat upon discovering 2 missed calls from Mo, leaving me momentarily taken aback. In the midst of the match, with the excitement swirling around me, I had set my phone to silent, unaware that Mo had reached out to me with a call. In a flurry of urgency, I dialed Mo's number once more. Her voice came through, tinged with a hint of frustration, as she explained that my absence had led her to take matters into her own hands and go fetch the children herself. With a soft murmur, I offered an excuse, weaving a tale of my busyness with work, as if the weight of my responsibilities had kept me from noticing. Mo held no blame against me, not a whisper of it in her heart. With a gentle nudge, she urged me to complete my tasks, promising that once I was done, I could return home to the comforting aroma of her favorite sour soup simmering on the stove, a delightful treat awaiting us tonight. With a sense of urgency, I slipped into my clothes, ready to bid farewell to my mother-in-law before embarking on my journey home. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, I set forth on my journey home, knowing that my beloved wife awaited my return with open arms. Upon my return, I found myself yearning for the warmth of companionship at the table. Would you not join me for a meal, sharing in the simple joys of good food and good company? As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the kitchen, the delightful aroma of spices filled the air, signaling that Mom was nearing the end of her culinary journey. Text nay, dear mother, I must take my leave for the time being and return home. As I swung the door open and stepped into the world beyond, little did I know that a simple promise to share dinner with my mother-in-law would set off a chain of events, weaving a tapestry of unforeseen consequences that would follow me like shadows in the twilight. With a heart unburdened by the weight of yesterday, I find no room for regret in my journey. I am not one to linger in the shadows of what has been, but rather to embrace the unfolding story ahead. Alas, even in the depths of my regret, the tapestry of events has been woven, and what has transpired cannot be undone. In the quiet moments of reflection, I find myself yearning to learn from the shadows of my past. My heart is set on embracing the love I hold for my wife and children, striving to weave a tapestry of cherished memories that will outshine the missteps of yesteryear. In the blink of an eye, certain events unfold, casting shadows of sorrow that stretch far beyond that fleeting moment, leaving echoes of pain that resonate through the corridors of time. In the quiet corners of my mind, I ponder whether my mother-in-law has come to see the error of her ways, and if, perhaps, a flicker of regret dances within her heart for the choices she has made. Yet one truth remains clear: from this moment forth, she and I shall curtail our encounters, and an unseen, everlasting chasm of awkwardness will linger between us, a distance we can never truly transcend. And thus, the tale we shared has reached its conclusion. In this tale, we discover how a single moment has the power to transform our lives, illuminating the way through missteps and misguided journeys. Yet, in the tapestry of life, the threads of regret intertwined with the fierce resolve to mend one's missteps shine brightly, deserving of admiration. What are your thoughts on this tale? We invite you to share your reflections in the comments section below. Gratitude fills the air as the tale comes to a close, and I thank you for being a part of this journey. Remember to show your appreciation by liking, sharing, and subscribing, so you can be part of the journey and receive the next thrilling tales. And so, with a heartfelt farewell, we part ways, but let us hold on to the hope of meeting once more.